I never expected a routine baseball practice to unravel my entire life. When Nathan, my son Eli's coach, pulled him aside and asked for a private talk after the game, something in my gut told me this wasn't about team strategy. The sun was still high over the suburban Chicago field, painting the grass in vibrant greens as parents packed up coolers and kids laughed in the distance. I stood by my truck, keys in hand, watching Eli nod and follow Nathan toward the small brick building that served as the coach's office. Eli had been different lately, quieter at family dinners, smiling at his phone more than usual, dodging questions about girls the way he used to dodge fastballs. At 22, fresh out of college with a degree in sports management, he was supposed to be dating, planning a future that looked like mine. Steady job, wife, kids, the whole traditional package I'd been raised to expect. Nathan was the kind of coach every father wanted for his son. Confident, patient, built like he could still play pro ball himself at 32. Short dark hair, sharp blue eyes, always in a fitted polo and baseball cap. The team adored him. I had trusted him completely for 2 seasons. So why did my stomach twist when he closed the office door behind them? I told myself it was nothing, just post-game notes on Eli's swing or college scouting talk. But 10 minutes passed, then 15. The parking lot emptied. I couldn't shake the feeling. I walked across the grass, the scent of cut turf and leather gloves thick in the warm air. The office window was half covered by blinds, but the door wasn't locked. I didn't plan to eavesdrop. I just wanted to knock, remind Eli we had dinner plans with his mother. My hand hovered over the knob when I heard Nathan's voice, low and serious. Eli, I can't keep pretending. Every time I see you on that field, it's killing me. I love you. I've loved you since last summer at the regional tournament. My breath caught. Love? The word hit like a line drive to the chest. Eli's reply came softer, trembling. Nathan, I love you too. God, I've wanted to say it for months. But my dad, he'll never understand. There was a pause, then the unmistakable sound of movement. Fabric shifting, a quiet sigh. I pushed the door open just enough to see them. Eli and Nathan stood inches apart, Nathan's hand gently cupping Eli's face, their foreheads touching in a moment so tender it stole the air from my lungs. This wasn't coaching. This was something I had no frame for, something that shattered every expectation I carried. My son, my straight, athletic son, was in the arms of his male coach, and the truth behind that door had just forced me to confront a reality I wasn't ready to name. I stepped back, heart hammering, the bright afternoon suddenly too loud. What now? I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't pretend I hadn't heard. My mind raced through every family dinner, every church sermon, every quiet hope I'd whispered for Eli's future. Traditional values weren't just words in our house. They were the foundation. My own father had drilled them into me, and I had passed them to Eli without question. Now the foundation cracked under the weight of 2 men who clearly meant every word they'd exchanged. I turned and walked to my truck on autopilot, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. Eli would be out any minute. I had to decide whether to confront them immediately or let the secret breathe a little longer. Either choice felt like stepping off a cliff. The drive home was silent between us, Eli scrolling his phone while I stared at the road. The image of their embrace burned into my vision. By the time we pulled into the driveway, my decision was made. I couldn't stay quiet. Not anymore. That night, after my wife Sarah went to bed, I sat in the living room with the lights low, replaying every interaction I'd seen between Eli and Nathan over the past year. The extra coaching sessions, the late-night texts Eli thought I didn't notice, the way Nathan's eyes lingered on my son during games. It all made terrible, perfect sense now. Eli came downstairs for water, still in his practice clothes, and froze when he saw me waiting. Dad? Everything okay? His voice carried the same nervousness I'd heard in the office. I looked at my son, tall, strong, the boy I'd coached in Little League, and felt my world tilt. We need to talk, Eli. About Nathan. About what I heard today. His face drained of color, but he didn't run. In that moment, I realized the private talk had opened a door not just for them, but for all of us. The journey ahead would test every bond we had, and none of us would emerge unchanged. Eli sank onto the couch opposite me, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles matched the pale oak coffee table. "You followed us," he said quietly, not accusing, just stating the fact. I nodded, the weight of the evening pressing down like the humidity before a Midwest thunderstorm. "I heard enough. He said he loves you. You said it back. Then that embrace." The words tasted foreign in my mouth. Eli's eyes filled with something between fear and relief, the kind of look I'd only seen once before, when he'd broken his arm sliding into home at 16 and tried to hide the pain from me. "Dad, it's not what you think. Nathan isn't some predator. We fell in love. Slowly. Honestly. It started with talks about life after baseball, then late drives after practice where we just understood each other. I wanted to rage, to demand how long this had been going on behind my back, but the psychological storm inside me held me still. Traditional expectations screamed that this was wrong, that my son had been led astray by a man in power. Yet the tenderness I'd witnessed contradicted every stereotype I'd absorbed growing up. "How long?" I asked instead. Eli exhaled. 8 months. Since the tournament in Milwaukee. He never pushed. I initiated half the conversations. We kept it secret because of his job, because of you and Mom, because the team would lose their minds. His voice cracked on the last part, revealing the constant fear he'd carried alone. In that confession, I saw my son not as a confused kid but as a man grappling with his identity in a world that still made it dangerous to be honest. The next morning I drove to the field early, before practice. Nathan was already there, setting up bases, his movements precise and athletic under the rising sun. When he spotted me, his posture stiffened, but he didn't look away. "Robert," he said, voice steady despite the tension. "Eli told me you know." I nodded, arms crossed. "I saw you together. Heard the words. I need the truth, Nathan. All of it." He set the last base down and faced me fully, the vibrant green field stretching behind him like a stage for the confrontation neither of us wanted. "I'm gay. I've known since college but buried it to coach. Eli, he changed everything. I tried to fight it, but loving him feels like the first honest thing I've done in years. I'd never hurt him. If you want me to resign, I will. His future matters more than my career." His willingness to sacrifice hit harder than anger would have. Here was a man risking everything, reputation, livelihood, the respect of every parent in the league, for my son. The misunderstanding I'd carried overnight began to fracture. This wasn't grooming. It was two adults choosing each other against the odds. Yet societal pressure loomed large in my mind. Whispers at the grocery store, sidelong glances at church, the way friends might pull their kids from the team. What about Eli's scholarship chances? The league scouts? Nathan's blue eyes held steady. "I've already turned down offers that would separate us. He knows the risks. We both do." Back home, Eli waited on the porch, Sarah inside making coffee, oblivious for now. The three of us sat at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the windows in bright, unforgiving beams. Eli spoke first, voice stronger than the night before. "Dad, I've spent years trying to be the son you wanted. Straight, successful, normal. But this is me. Nathan is part of that truth." Sarah's hand found mine under the table, her silent support a lifeline. The psychological conflict inside me intensified. Love for my son warring with every lesson I'd been taught about family and manhood. I didn't yell. I asked questions instead, listening as Eli described the loneliness of hiding, the relief of Nathan's understanding, the small moments of joy they stole in parking lots and late-night texts. By the time we finished, my decision wasn't acceptance yet, but a fragile truce. "I need time," I said, "but I won't pretend this isn't happening." That truce lasted exactly 4 days. A teammate, Jake, cornered Eli after practice with a knowing smirk. "Saw you and coach getting cozy last week. Whole team's talking." The secret was cracking open, betrayal coming from inside the circle we trusted most. Eli came home furious and scared, Nathan calling minutes later to say the athletic director had already asked for a meeting. The pressure mounted like a fastball with no escape. I watched my son pace the living room, Nathan's voice steady on speakerphone offering to take the fall. "This is my fault for not being careful." Eli stopped pacing. "No, it's our life. We face it together." In that moment, I glimpsed the strength their love had forged, the kind of loyalty that outlasted fear. My own role shifted from protector to witness, and the emotional weight of it all began to reshape me in ways I couldn't yet name. The athletic director's office smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, the kind of sterile space where careers ended quietly. Nathan sat across from him in a crisp polo, Eli beside me on a hard plastic chair, his knee bouncing with nervous energy. I had insisted on coming, not as an angry father but as someone trying to understand. The director, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, laid out the facts. A parent had complained after Jake's loose lips spread the rumor. "Policy is clear," she said. "Fraternization between staff and players, even former players, raises red flags." Nathan's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Eli isn't a minor. We're both adults. This isn't exploitation." She sighed, the societal weight of tradition pressing on all of us. "Perception matters. The league could lose sponsors." Outside afterward, the three of us stood under a bright blue sky that felt mocking in its cheerfulness. Nathan turned to Eli, hand hovering as if wanting to touch but knowing eyes might be watching. "I'll resign if it protects you." Eli shook his head fiercely. "That's not love. That's running." Their exchange revealed layers I hadn't seen. The quiet sacrifices Nathan had already made, skipping social events to avoid suspicion, deleting messages nightly. Eli's identity struggle poured out in the car ride home. I spent college pretending, dating girls I didn't feel anything for, just to fit in. Nathan showed me I didn't have to anymore. His words landed like a fastball to the chest, forcing me to confront how my expectations had boxed him in. That weekend, family dinner became ground zero for the growing storm. My brother Mike visited from Indianapolis, the same traditional values running through his veins that I'd once shared. When Eli quietly introduced Nathan as more than my coach, Mike's fork froze midair. "You're telling me my nephew is with a man?" The table went silent. Sarah tried to mediate, but the rifts widened. Mike left early, muttering about what the neighbors will say. Eli's eyes met mine across the empty plates, hurt and defiant. In that look, I saw the cost of secrecy and the courage it took to break it. Nathan excused himself to the porch and I followed, the night air cool against the heat of the confrontation. "Your brother's reaction is what I feared most," Nathan admitted. "Not for me, for Eli. I've lost friends over this before. I don't want him to lose family." The betrayal deepened when Jake posted a vague social media story that the team interpreted instantly. Practices turned tense, whispers following Eli like shadows. One teammate, a loyal friend named Marcus, pulled me aside after a game. "Coach is good people, sir. Eli's happier than I've ever seen him. Don't let the noise ruin that." His quiet support contrasted the growing isolation, showing me the true loyalty that existed beyond prejudice. Meanwhile, Nathan and Eli's relationship faced its own tests. I overheard them on the phone one night, Nathan describing the panic attacks he'd hidden since college, the fear of being found out, ending his dream of coaching kids who needed role models. Eli responded with the steady voice of someone who had found his anchor. We build something real. Together. Their conversations painted a picture of two men navigating love under fire, decisions weighed against consequences that could strip away careers and community. My own psychological shift accelerated in small moments. Watching Nathan patiently correct Eli's stance at batting practice, their eyes meeting with unspoken affection. Hearing Eli laugh, really laugh, for the first time in months during a quiet evening when Nathan joined us for dinner, Sarah's gentle acceptance paving the way. Yet the pressure never let up. A local sports blog caught wind of the scandal, naming names without proof. Eli's phone buzzed non-stop with notifications he refused to read. One night he broke down in the kitchen, fists clenched. I just wanted to play ball and love who I love. Why does that threaten everyone? Nathan arrived minutes later, wrapping Eli in a hug right there in front of me. I didn't look away. Instead, I saw the strength their bond gave them, the way love became armor against a world that demanded conformity. The turning point was approaching, and I felt myself being pulled toward it, no longer just observer but participant in their fight for acceptance. The blog post exploded online by Monday morning, comments flooding in from parents and alumni alike. Fire the coach, one read. Protect our kids. Another, this is the new normal. Deal with it. Nathan's phone rang constantly until he silenced it, his face etched with the exhaustion of constant defense. Eli skipped a practice for the first time, the psychological toll carving lines around his young eyes. I found them in our backyard that evening, sitting on the old wooden bench under the maple tree, hands intertwined despite the risk. I'm done hiding, Eli said when I approached. But I won't let them take baseball from you, Nathan. The sacrifice in his voice was clear. He was ready to walk away from scouts, from the game that defined him, for the man he loved. Nathan shook his head. No, I've already submitted my resignation. Effective end of season. The director accepted it quietly to avoid more drama. The decision hit like a gut punch. Here was a man who lived for the game, giving it up not because he was forced, but because love demanded it. I sat with them, the three of us under the fading light, and for the first time spoke not as judge but as someone trying to bridge the gap. What if we fight this together? Public statement, league meeting, whatever it takes. Their surprised expressions mirrored my own internal shift. The traditional expectations that had ruled my life now felt like chains I was ready to loosen. The big turning point came at the league championship game 2 weeks later. The stands were packed, tension thick as fog. Eli took the mound for the final inning, Nathan in the dugout despite his pending exit, coaching from the sidelines one last time. When Eli struck out the last batter, the crowd erupted, then hushed as Nathan walked onto the field and pulled Eli into a public embrace, not hiding anymore. Cameras flashed. Whispers turned to murmurs. I stood in the bleachers, heart pounding, Sarah's hand in mine. This was the moment that changed their fate forever. No more private talks behind closed doors. The truth was out, raw and unapologetic. After the game, the real storm hit. Parents demanded meetings. The athletic director called an emergency session. Eli and Nathan faced the board together, hands steady on the table. We love each other, Eli said simply, and we've never crossed any line that harmed the team. Nathan added, I'm stepping down so there's no conflict. But Eli deserves to play without shame. I stood up then, surprising even myself. As Eli's father, I've watched this relationship build strength, not weakness. My son is happier, stronger, more himself than ever. If that's a problem, then the problem isn't them. It's us. My words hung in the room, the consequence of months of internal war finally spoken aloud. The board voted to let Eli finish the season without penalty. Nathan's resignation stood, but the door to his future remained cracked open. That night at home, the four of us, Sarah, Eli, Nathan, and me, shared pizza on the patio, the vibrant city lights of Chicago twinkling in the distance. Eli leaned against Nathan, the easy affection no longer hidden. Dad, thank you, he said quietly, for speaking up. I nodded, the psychological relief washing over me like cool rain after drought. Yet new conflicts brewed. Nathan's job search began immediately, applications sent to colleges that might accept an openly gay coach. Eli turned down a minor league offer that required relocation, choosing instead to stay and build something real. Their decisions carried weight, each one a step toward the acceptance they both craved, not just from me, but from the wider world. Friendship rifts healed slowly. Marcus organized a small team gathering to show support, proving loyalty could survive betrayal. Still, The societal pressure lingered in sidelong glances at the grocery store, quiet comments at church. We faced them together now, the family I never imagined redefining itself around two men whose love had forced every one of us to grow. Nathan's new reality settled in like an unexpected curveball. He took a part-time assistant coaching role at a nearby community college. The pay lower but the environment more open. Eli graduated into a marketing job with a local sports brand, his days filled with campaigns that quietly celebrated diversity. Their relationship deepened in the ordinary moments. Cooking dinner together, weekend hikes along the lakefront where they could hold hands without fear. I watched from the sidelines, my own journey of acceptance unfolding in quiet conversations with Sarah late at night. I was so sure I knew what was right, I admitted one evening. Now I see love doesn't follow rules. She smiled, the understanding between us stronger than ever. Yet the past refused to stay buried. A former teammate from Nathan's college days reached out with a message that reopened old wounds. Heard about the scandal. Always knew you were different. The betrayal stung, reminding Nathan of the years he'd spent hiding to protect his dreams. Eli held him through the rough nights, their bond proving stronger than external noise. One weekend, we drove to a family cabin in Wisconsin, the four of us seeking space from the city's eyes. Around the fire pit under a star-filled sky, Nathan shared his story fully. The bullying in high school, the prayer groups his parents forced him into, the relief when baseball became his escape. Eli listened, then spoke of his own struggles. The confusion in locker rooms, the guilt of lying to me about dates. Their vulnerabilities laid bare forced me to confront my role in the pressure they'd felt. I never meant to make you hide, I told Eli. But I did. I'm sorry. The apology hung in the crisp night air, a sacrifice of pride that healed more than I expected. Misunderstandings still surfaced. Sarah's sister called, horrified by the news, demanding to know how I could support it. The conversation turned heated until I spoke up again, voice steady. They're good men who love each other. That's enough for me. The truth I'd been avoiding, that my traditional worldview had cracks, finally faced daylight. Meanwhile, Eli and Nathan faced a new test when a rival coach spread rumors to scouts, threatening Eli's future opportunities. Nathan offered to step back completely, another sacrifice that Eli refused. We're a team, he said simply. Their decision to fight side by side marked another turning point, proving love wasn't just emotion but action against the odds. The emotional undercurrents built toward something larger. Nathan received an offer from a progressive university in California, head coach with full support for his identity. The move would mean distance, a new chapter. Eli considered transferring his job remotely, weighing dreams against roots. I saw the conflict in their eyes during dinners, the way they lingered over goodbyes as if testing the strength of their bond. Societal acceptance still felt conditional, but their personal growth was undeniable. Eli stood taller, no longer seeking my approval first. Nathan carried himself with quiet confidence, no longer apologizing for who he was. My role had shifted from gatekeeper to ally, the psychological transformation complete in ways I hadn't anticipated when I first pushed open that office door. The California offer became real in early fall, the university flying Nathan out for interviews under bright Pacific skies. Eli joined him for the weekend, their texts to us filled with photos of ocean views and hopeful conversations with athletic staff who welcomed them openly. Back home, Sarah and I packed boxes in the garage, preparing for the possibility of distance while clinging to the new family dynamic we'd built. When they returned, faces glowing, Eli announced the decision. We're going. Together. The university offered me a marketing role too. It's a fresh start where we don't have to explain ourselves. The words carried the weight of every challenge they'd overcome. Misunderstandings resolved, secrets revealed, betrayals weathered, sacrifices made. The farewell game was emotional. The entire team showed up, even those who had whispered before. Marcus gave a speech about loyalty and courage that brought grown men to tears. I stood on the sidelines with Nathan, watching Eli pitch one final inning under the stadium lights. When the last out came, the crowd, parents, players, even a few former critics, rose in applause that felt like hard-won acceptance. Nathan pulled me into a brief hug. "Thank you for speaking up that day in the boardroom. It changed everything." In his words, I heard the full circle. The private talk that started it all had led to public truth, growth, and a love that refused to stay hidden. Moving day arrived with crisp autumn air and the promise of new beginnings. We helped load the truck, Sarah wiping tears while Eli and Nathan exchanged quiet smiles over shared memories. As they drove away, I stood in the driveway, the house suddenly too quiet. The journey that began with suspicion behind a closed door had rewritten every expectation I held about family, manhood, and love. Eli had found his identity not in hiding but in courage. Nathan had chosen authenticity over security. Together they proved that love, when tested by fire, could emerge stronger. I had learned to speak up not just for them but for the man I was becoming, more open, more human. Months later, we visited their new apartment overlooking the Pacific, the vibrant California sun mirroring the brightness that now filled our lives. Eli and Nathan cooked dinner together, laughter echoing off the walls as they recounted stories of team, bonding events where no one batted an eye at their relationship. The societal pressures hadn't vanished entirely, but they faced them as partners, their bond an anchor in any storm. I sat on the balcony with Sarah, watching the waves, and realized the greatest gift of that shocking day was the acceptance we all gained. Not just of them, but of ourselves. True or false? Love between two men can only truly thrive when family and society offer full acceptance from the start.